Hey, welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to just talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is going through loss and grief. I know a lot of people don't like this subject. It's something that can be a little hard to discuss, but I feel like it's something that's near and dear to my heart that I definitely have a lot of experience with. As a 45-year-old woman, I have experienced a lot of loss and grief in my life, more than I would care to have. Personally, it wasn't something that was chosen by me, obviously. Um, but the first time I ever experienced loss was actually when I was just a little kid. I was about 5 years old, and we were outside playing with some puppies that one of our dogs had had. And I remember going and playing with those puppies, and it was in Arizona. We were in the desert, it was hot. And I was actually giving the puppies a bath in a 5-gallon bucket. We grew up poor, and you always found something to do, right? And as little kids growing up, dad was working. He had a full-time tire business, and mom was a stay-at-home mom. She would pick up side jobs here and there. He was also a country western musician, so he was always really busy. But one day we were outside and as kids, and we were playing in the water hose, and I was giving these puppies a bath, and I held one of them under the water too long. And I remember pulling it up, and it was literally lethargic. And my uncle was going to take that dog, and my uncle was like kind of mean. And I always just thought he was a really mean uncle, and he was aggressive. And I just didn't like his demeanor. And I just prayed to God to not give that puppy to him. And then I drowned the dang puppy. I was little. I was literally 4 or 5 years old. I didn't understand what I had done at the time. So my family obviously took the puppy from me and took care of the puppy and buried it and all the things. I didn't learn until like actually being an adult and processing that story, that what I had done. They did not explain to me death. They did not explain to me the consequences of what I did. They just literally were just shocked and took care of the puppy and then left it at that. And so as a little kid, I didn't think I had done anything wrong. I didn't think I'd done anything good. Like, I had no idea. I just knew that God wasn't going to give my uncle that puppy, and I was relieved. I know that just sounds so harsh, right? I didn't experience more death until I was 9 years old, and our family had a house fire where it was in the middle of the night at 10 o'clock at night. I was actually the one who woke up to the fire and who alerted my dad that the house was on fire, and my 3-year-old nephew was staying with us for the night. And I actually like saved him and took him into my parents' room and drug him in there so that he wouldn't die in that fire. Um, but my sister, who was 11, went back in the fire after her dog, and she actually died in that fire. Um, Watching her run through those flames and just going through the motions of my parents looking for her. And then my mother had a vision after that fire. And that evening, later in the evening, almost midnight, my mom had a vision, and I was actually part of that vision. I heard my sister's voice talking to my mother. I felt my sister sitting down on the end of the bed. And it was just life changing because I could hear the worry in my mom's voice when she was talking to my sister. And people may not understand spirituality or understand like how people can have that kind of a gift, but my mom has had it her whole life. I've had it my whole life. My children have it as well. And those visions, usually when we have them, they come to fruition and are exactly as they are unless we alter them in a better way, some way. And so that first round of loss, as a little kid, with a puppy, I didn't understand it, right? But at 9 years old, I understand my sister never coming back. We We went to psychologists. I went and sat in this big chair, and they asked if I wanted to see a therapist. I was 9 years old. It was 1988. I'd never heard of a therapist. I didn't even know what that was. So I was like, no. And they were like, okay. And then I never went and seen a counselor or a therapist again. And instead, I was just left to just deal with my feelings and my emotions by myself inside. I didn't have the courage to ask for help. I didn't have the courage to say I have something wrong with me. Instead, I started acting out. What my family also didn't know was from 3 to 7 years old, I was molested by three separate family members. And so when my sister died, and we lost everything. We did not go back to that same property where we lived. We actually ended up moving across town. And so that took me away from the last abuser. And so for me, as hard as it was to grieve my sister's death, I was also grieving the the loss of like the person that I didn't even know who I was. I was grieving the loss of the life I had grown up with. I was also inside just celebrating never having to live next door to the monster that I had living next door. I was just celebrating and and the grief, and it was all kind of mixed emotions. And as a little kid, that is so confusing to your heart and to your soul and to your mind. And so that grief from my sister, I just remember like the songs that were played at her funeral. I remember having to stand as a 9-year-old kid, having to go pick out the outfit for her funeral. And we didn't really do like shopping at this place where the Salvation Army had taken us because like we had lost everything. And I remember like the Salvation Army lady coming, and she was like, "We're going to pick you out this pretty dress." And she was trying to be really nice. But as a 9-year-old who had just lost her sister, like I didn't give a crap about no pretty dress. I just wanted my sister back. And nobody could help me understand that she wasn't going to come back. And so that was some heavy shiz. That really dictated what came next in my life, to be honest. I went into this spiral of toxic behavior, and I just wanted to not live. I didn't want to exist on this planet. And I just, I know that is so harsh to hear and say from somebody, especially when you know, like they were 9 years old and they felt like that. But I didn't know who my identity was at that point. See, my sister was 2 years older than me, and we looked like we were twins. So when people would see us and we'd walk down the street, they would think that my mom had twins, and they would like ask all these questions and like all these things. Well, once my sister died, I always got told how much I looked like her. I always got told how much I acted like her. And I wasn't trying to be her, I was trying to be myself. But everything I did, people associated it with my sister who had died. And so I wanted to just find who I was, but I didn't know who she was. And I was just a little kid trying to process all of this. And so by the time I was in double digits, I was starting to abuse drugs, and I was starting to abuse alcohol. And by the time I was 12 years old, I was actually going through so much grief that I acted out in ways of just, you could tell I had something going on and wasn't dealing with it, but people wouldn't know it in the 80s and the 90s, you know what I mean? Like they just didn't put those pieces of the puzzle together, and they just assumed you were a bad kid and you were just up to no good, right? But I was screaming out for help. So I started shoplifting with friends. I started throwing keggers and parties at 12 years old. I threw this rager party for a friend for her birthday. Her mom was an addict and alcoholic and just a pedophile, and so she literally would just buy all the things we wanted, just so that we could throw a party and friends could come over. And it was just really awful. It was awful. And I look back now and I'm so grateful that God got me through it. I'm so grateful that he knew that I was going to struggle, and he still loved me through it. And I look back now and I can't believe I did half of the things that I did. I can't believe I did any of them, to be honest. And it blows my mind how quickly somebody will act out and misbehave when they're hurting. And people automatically assume that someone is just a bad person, or they automatically assume that, you have a bad kid, or that something, it's the kid's fault, right? It's the person's fault for the behavior. But have you sat down and like asked them what's bothering them and really dug deep into the roots of the problem? And nobody did that for me. I also wouldn't let anyone. And so you have to take that into consideration too, is does the person want help? I didn't want help. I wanted to be miserable for quite some time because I just didn't know how to be happy. I felt like that if I was happy, um, that it wasn't fair to my sister's death. And I know that sounds so crazy, right? To hear that out loud, but I think back today and I know it has to do with the fact that I was so afraid to live my life for me because I felt like if I did, there was this guilty piece of me, like survivor's guilt was really, really there. And I felt like if I had one shred of happiness, that it wouldn't be fair to my sister. She died and didn't get that. And I didn't understand that I was given another opportunity to live. And I look back now and I am just so grateful for the journey, for the healing, for the blessings. If you would have asked me as a 12-year-old kid who was down in a gallon of whiskey and still not drunk, if she still hurts today, the answer is no. Today I'm sober. Thank you, God. Today I am sober and it's all God. It is not me. He keeps me sober, and that sobriety of that reminder that I'm his child. And I actually got sober Christmas of 2017. It took me a long time to sober up. Um, I went off and on years of drinking and not drinking, and going on benders. I don't know if anybody else can understand or relate to that, but in between like messy divorces or a messy breakup, I would go on a bender, and I would relapse basically. And I never considered myself sober any other time except for Christmas of 2017, because that was the day I made the decision to never drink again, because I just knew it wasn't good for me, personally for me. And um, I I still crave alcohol today. That's how I know I'm an alcoholic. That's how I know that the battles that I've overcome and fought were real. Because today I still say no to somebody who offers it. Thank God. That's all God. Thank you, God. Um, but I also know that I have willpower, and he's instilled that in me to say no because it's not good for me, to anything that's not good for me, not just alcohol, but anything. Um, I fell into addiction. I wouldn't say really hardcore addiction. I would say just dabbling here and there. And that was still an addictive behavior. It was still um, addictive patterns. And so with that dabbling, I experimented with different drugs, and I realized as soon as I took them and how they made me feel that I could never use them again or I would lose my daughter. Um, I experimented with those when I only had one child at the time and I was going through my first divorce, and I was just feeling so lost, and I was about 19, 20 years old, and I realized in that moment that I would lose everything if I kept going. And so I pulled myself out of there and I walked out of that house and I never looked back. Um, and I know that was all God. That was just sheer willpower and trusting the faith and knowing that I could do better. And so grief can bring on so many different behaviors in people, For some of us, it's just going to bring sadness. And for some of us, it's going to bring anger. For others, it's going to create more trauma or addictions, or it's going to better us. And usually it takes a while for the better part to come. We have to work through all those other feelings and emotions to find understanding. And that's what I had to realize. I had to realize was that the feelings I was feeling were normal feelings with grief. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. But what we don't understand is that grief is a really low frequency, a really low vibrating energy. And I had to learn this recently, and it's really helped me understand grief more because I didn't just have those two experiences that shifted me as a kid and as an adult. I, in eighth grade, watched my best friends lose their dad to an auto accident. And I was one of two other students in an entire school with the principal who stood up and held their hands while they went up to their father's open casket just to support them because I knew that they would not be able to do it by themselves. After me losing my sister, I knew what it took. And my sister had a closed casket. She didn't even have an open casket, but I knew that those girls would need someone. And I did it selflessly for them. I didn't do that for my own good. I did that for them. And then I went on to lose, little cousins to cerebral palsy. And I went on to lose my father at 25 years old. My father passed away when he was 83. He was an older dad. He had to be in his 50s, but he was the best dad ever. And losing him was losing my best friend. And I was pregnant with my third baby, Logan, when I lost my dad. And I was 25, and 11 days after my dad passed, my son was born. Um, and I was so grateful for my baby to be there, to just cuddle him, to just love on him, plus my two girls. And it was just an eye opener. My kids were, 3 and 10, and then Logan was just this brand new baby. And all of a sudden, I, you know, had this little guy that was named after my dad, and my dad wasn't there to share that moment, but my mom was. And my mom needed my son so much during that time. I remember my mom just coming over and she would just cuddle my son and she would just play with him. And he was like so attached to her. You could tell he was a part of my dad. And I couldn't calm him down, but my mom could. I could call her from across town to come and calm him down. Um, Grief is so wild too, because you will be doing fine 1 minute, and then the next it just hits you like a wave of emotions. I tell people it does come in waves. Throughout my journey, I've lost, a best friend to a very rare disease, and I had a vision about her. And I thought it was going to be me, to be honest with you. The vision said it was a mom with 4 kids would pass away. And I was going in for a surgery, and a spinal cord surgery due to an injury. Um, and I thought it was going to be me. And so for 30 days, I had panic attacks. And if you ever had panic attacks, you know those are real. And for 30 days, I had those panic attacks. And then I went in for my surgery. And I'll never forget waking up from my surgery. And the first words I said was, "It's not me. I'm still alive." And the nurses looked at me so strangely because I honestly thought that dream was me. And when it wasn't me, I was like, all right, here we are. It's August. And so who is it, right? And it went on for months and months and months, and I never knew. And then March rolled around, and I got a phone call from my best friend. She was at the hospital, and she said that they told her she wasn't going to make it. And she said, "You're like my kids' second mom." And she had 4 kids. Her youngest was 5 years old. And she said, "I need you to help my kids and just be there for them because you're literally the one person I know that will be." And I told her I loved her. I told her I absolutely would. Told her to hang in there. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was the last person to talk to her before she went into a coma. She went into a coma, and they couldn't wake her up. And she lasted almost 2 weeks later. Um, I hobbled to the hospital to go see her days before she passed away. And to just know how that set for me and how God used me in that moment for them. I didn't know it at the time, but I was a blessing to them at the time. Just to know how much she loved her babies, and for me to be able to reiterate those things to them was just such a blessing. Today, they're all doing amazing. The youngest just graduated high school in June. And if you didn't know it, he's blind. And so that was just a huge win for him and for the family. They lost their dad to cancer too about a year ago. And the older girls are all adults now. They're all adults now, but they're doing amazing and they're showing up for themselves in their lives. And I think that is what their parents would be the most proud of. And so grief doesn't just go away. Just thinking about that right now and knowing what they've gone through hits me so deep. Um, it doesn't end there for me. In March of 2017, my little 9-month-old granddaughter, my very first grandbaby, was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, cancer. My daughter was 21 when she had her. And so she was diagnosed, and what a journey. What a journey we were on. I will definitely tell you, cancer is a marathon, it is not a race. And that little girl battled 4 separate times. We grieved just so many different things during that journey. Um, we grieved the baby that she should have been able to be. We grieved the little girl she should have been able to be. She went through, relapse and almost 30 days of a coma where she had to relearn how to be a brand new child. Just came out as a newborn at 11 months old, and people would say she wouldn't walk and she wasn't going to talk and she was going to be a vegetable, and we were like, the hell she is. And we just ignored them and just proved every single medical person that wrong. Like, she was incredible. She was a little BA girl, like just bad A. And she was just so cool. And she just taught us all how to fight like a kid, like just fight our asses off for whatever it is we wanted. And in May 2nd of 2019, just before her 3rd birthday, we went in and we could tell something was off with her. Her balance wasn't right. She was kind of off balance. She was having trouble holding herself up. And they found another tumor on her brain. And because she'd already had 4 brain surgeries, she now was deemed inoperable, meaning she was now terminal with this cancer. And to hear the words terminal sucks the life out of you. I don't know how else to say it. Takes the breath right out of you. And as a mom and grandma, having to be in that room with my daughter when she heard the words that her daughter was terminal and there's nothing they could do. If we wanted more time, we could do some radiation. But asking the choices of what we have to do, right? Um, for me, uh, this was one of the hardest, it was, I won't say one of, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through with any of my kids. It still is to this day. And Olivia was determined to live. I think that was the hardest part for me, when a little kid doesn't want to die. And that is what hit me the hardest. Was just watching her fight. Uh, she went into a coma a couple of times. Hospice told us that that would be the final it. She proved us all wrong, and she came out of that coma yelling for ice cream, wanting her mama. Just the things that this little one did that just blew your mind. So for a couple of months, from May 2nd until we lost Liv on July 30th, we had to grieve her loss and grieve the outcome and grieve the things before she passed. And it wasn't easy. It was definitely a journey. It was a blessing that we could all be there for her. Megan brought her home, and we were all there with her until her final moments. And I am just so grateful for that, because it did help the grieving process. And that is going to be different for each person and for everybody, obviously, but for us, it really did help. Being spiritual and being people who have those visions, we also see spirits, and people will call us cuckoo and whatever, but it is what it is. We got to watch, and I was blessed with a vision of going to heaven. And I I didn't realize that I could even go. I didn't think I was worthy enough to go into heaven's gates. I didn't think that I was worthy of God's love that way. I was still struggling with my relationship with him, and I was still really struggling with the mistakes I had made in my life. And I didn't know that that is why we have Jesus, so that he can forgive us for our sins, and he can take those sins from us, and he can heal us and make us whole again, right? I didn't understand those things at the time. What I knew was that Jesus was a healer. What I knew was that he had what we needed for her to be healed. And I just remember 2 weeks before she passed, we had all gone to the park and we had played in the creek. And she hated water because she was bathed so much at the hospital. She just didn't like getting a bath, but she loved going in that creek. And it reminded me when Jesus takes the little babies into the creek and baptizes them, or someone goes in the creek with Jesus and they come out and they're just this new. And she went into a coma right after getting in the water and going in the creek with us, and that peacefulness that we felt, Jesus's presence. And then she went into a coma about an hour later. And hospice came out. It was like 4 p.m. by then. And hospice was like, all right, this is, it. She's in a coma. She'll probably go from here, the next 24 hours. And all night long, I was looking for a cure online. And I was just, my grandma heart, my mom heart was just aching. And so I was looking for a cure. And I remember just praying and just saying, God, you've got to show me. Like, I've got to see, like, how can I fix this? I was a fixer. And in my mindset, I had to fix this. And I couldn't. And I just didn't realize that I couldn't. And so I I decided at like 2:30 in the morning that it was time to go to bed. And I needed to get up because I knew that I'd have to be over there around 7:30, 8 o'clock, just to check on them. And the next morning. And so I went to bed. And when I woke up at 2:45 in the morning, I woke up and I was in heaven. And I was standing at heaven's gates. And my uncle Wayne, who had died from a brain aneurysm, the same thing Olivia had when I was 18 years old, a senior in high school, um, was there. And he was dressed like his wedding day. And he was saying how he needed to bring me here because I'm a believe it when I see it kind of gal, and that I'm not going to be able to live on earth and do what I'm supposed to do if I didn't go to heaven and understand that Olivia was coming to heaven. And he said, she's a warrior down there and she's a warrior up here, and we're coming for her. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't fix this. And he said, because you're a believe it when you see it kind of gal. I said, you damn right I am. He said, I'm going to bring you here. I want you to see where she'll be. And I said, okay. And he opened heaven's gates. And for football fields after football fields after football fields after football fields after football fields on both sides of these golden sidewalks were my family members and friends and our loved ones waiting for her. My father, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my little cousins, my 4 babies I miscarried, my sister. My uncle said that my sister Michelle, who died in the house fire, would be her guardian angel, and that she'd be the one looking out for her because they were a lot alike. And we all knew that was true. We all knew they were sassy pants together. We knew that. And I just knew that was a perfect fit. And I counted 13 golden playgrounds as I walked those sidewalks. The clouds just glistened from the gold on the sidewalks. And I remember asking him if I could stay. I told him, I don't hurt here. I don't hurt here at all. Can I stay? I don't want to go home. I don't have any pain here. And he told me it wasn't my time and my turn and I had to go. He said, everyone has their turn when it's their time, and now it's not yours, and that you need to leave. And I said, I don't want to. I don't hurt here. Please let me stay. And he said no. And he kicked me out of heaven. And I woke up and I was about 12 inches off of my bed. And I felt like I was on clouds. And I had my hands across my chest, crisscrossed. And I said, everyone has their turn. Everyone has their turn. And I lightly fell to the bed and I woke up yelling, whoa, whoa. And my husband rolled over and said, yep, you're doing it again. And he went back to bed. Evidently, I had visions like that before and not remembered or not really known. And so that moment, I got up and I looked at the clock and it was 8:30 a.m. And I went to my mom's, where my daughter and my granddaughter were, to check on them. And when I got to my mom's house, Jesus was in my mother's living room pacing. And when you walked up to their house, to their apartment, their whole half of the apartment was just this light glowing from it, just glowing from it. And the neighbor actually commented and said, I'm not sure why, but her place has been glowing like that all morning since I woke up. And I went inside and there was Jesus, and my mom was sitting in a chair and he was pacing in front of her. And he went and sat on her couch and he pulled his robe over his knee, crossed one leg, and he had his sandals on. And I looked down at him and my mom said, don't worry, he's here for the baby. And she had so much peace when she said it. And I said, you can see him too. She said, yes, he's been here all morning with me. So comforting. And I leaned over and I waved to him and I said, how are you doing? How's it going? Today I would have hugged him so tight and thanked him for saving my life. I went upstairs and my granddaughter was awake from her coma. At 2:45 in the morning, when I was going to heaven, she was waking up and yelling for ice cream and her mom. Jesus gave her mom more time with her. For the next few days, we watched ancestors, spirits come in the bedroom, in and out of the bedroom where they were at, introducing themselves to her and to Megan, letting them know who she was going to be with in heaven. Generations upon generations of family members showed up. It was the most awe-inspiring moment of my life to this day. It made me a believer through and through, and I'll never be a believe it when I see it kind of gal again. I will have faith in knowing whatever God has in store for us is already done. And it's because of that little girl that I believe that today. It's because of that little girl that I have the faith. It's no longer the size of a mustard seed like it once was. It is the size of the mustard tree. The size of the mustard tree. And it just is so incredible what I witnessed and what I saw and what I felt. And it's something that has stuck with me. And I know though her time was short with us, it was impactful. It was life altering. It was life changing. It's healed me in so many areas of my life that I didn't think were possible to be healed. She has given me the courage to keep fighting for my life, to keep fighting through my illnesses, to keep fighting through my diseases, my chronic pain. When people ask, how did you do it? It will always be God. It will always be because of God. It will always be because of Jesus being a healer, and he's healing myself, my mind, my body, my spirit. It will always be, they get the glory. I didn't do this myself. Grief still comes in waves. It still hits. July, we lost a little cousin. He was 5 days before his 5th birthday. He drowned. He was autistic. And it was just such a tragedy. Another tragedy, right? And how do you get through it? God. God gets us through it. Jesus gets us through it. That hope in knowing that something good is going to come out of this tragedy. Because of the stories that my children and the life that my children and I and my grandchildren that we've all experienced, someone else is better today. So many things are transpiring and happening because of those incidences, and more will happen because of those incidences. They were significant moments in our lives that impacted us in ways that we can't undo. Now, grief will make you be bitter or better. The choice is always yours. And for a while, it made me bitter. But as I've gotten older and as I've found more understanding and more peace and love and Jesus's love, not just any love, but Jesus's love, I can go on this journey now knowing that everything is going to be okay. Knowing that the amount of love that you have for somebody, even after they die, it doesn't go away. You don't lose that. No one can take that from you, just like they can't take those memories from you. And I'm just so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the truth and knowing that if you want the healing and to be better and to change your circumstances so that you can make something good come out of the mess and turn your mess into your message, you can. You absolutely can. Today, my daughter has 2 beautiful sons. Absolutely handsome babies. One will be 4 in December, and one is almost 5 months. And I think about that. And they're healthy and they're just so full of life. They remind us so much of Olivia, and they have their own little characteristics that make them them. And as a grandma and a mom, my heart just bursts when I see them and when I play with them and when I talk to them on the phone. And I always thank God for them. I thank God for my daughter and my children and my family. And you learn with grief to not take things for granted. And you learn how to pick up the pieces to be a better you. And that's what it's about. As hard as it is to sit in that grief, you can't continue to sit in it because it will bring down your energy and your vibration so low that you won't live. You won't have a life. And it's not healthy. We're meant to grieve, yes. We're meant to grieve the loss of a job or the loss of a life, right? The loss of something. But we're not meant to sit in it forever. We're meant to learn from it. We're meant to grow from it and to find the blessings from it and the lessons from it. And we're meant to just cherish those moments we had with our loved ones. But we can't sit in it forever. And for a long time, I sat there. After Olivia died, I sat there for 5 months, depressed, feeling just so horrible. It was affecting my family. It was impacting my day to day until I found something to honor her. And so sometimes when we lose somebody we love or we lose something we love, we have to find ways to honor them. We have to find ways to show how we care in ways that will help us heal, ways that will help us do better. And so for me, that's what happened. Was 5 months after losing Olivia, I launched my own business and I started rewriting my story. And I decided that I would no longer be a victim. And it has literally changed everything for my family. That one decision to honor her changed everything for my family. And so it is possible to find the healing. It is possible to navigate the waters of grief. You just have to make peace in knowing you are allowed to heal. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to find joy. You are allowed to find the gratitude in your day to day. And that loss, though it might feel permanent, it's not. You're going to all reunite one day in heaven, if that's what you believe. And you are truly, truly going to be whole and happy and healed and blessed. I know that. I've been there. Heaven is not that far away. Talk to them. Talk to your loved ones now. In your day to day, if you're struggling, go have a conversation with them. Tell them how much you love them. Just speak it out into existence. They hear you, they feel you, they're nearby. We may not see it or believe it, but I'm here to tell you it's true. They're not very far. They're not far away at all. And you would be amazed the feelings and the signs. Olivia loves to leave. She used to have this ball pit, and she loved ball pits, okay? Those little plastic balls. She loved them. I have two right here. I have a blue one and a yellow one. Okay? This little girl. I gave all these balls to Megan with the ball pit 4 years ago. Okay? Because I had a lot of her stuff stored here for a while for Maggie. And 4 years ago, I gave all these balls to Megan. We packed them all up. Everything went. They were all just in one room, in our spare room. And every holiday, every time one of us are thinking of her, every time she's thinking of us, every time like someone's around or something is happening, we will find these balls everywhere. I found them on my lawn when it was kids outside playing and it was nice weather. A pink and purple one showed up. Her favorite colors are pink, purple, and green. Okay. Halloween, an orange one and a purple one showed up in our Halloween box with all of our decorations. When Lyrics and I went to open it, these balls fell out. They weren't there. Christmas, green and red ones showing up. Um, Randomly in the living room, a pink one will pop out from under the couch. In the kitchen, literally in the middle of the dining room floor, walk in there and there's a blue one. You're like, what is going on here, Olivia? These little balls have shown up randomly in my car. They've showed up randomly at other friends' houses. They've showed up randomly places we'd go. They literally show up in the most random spots ever. I'm not the only one that finds them. The family finds them. We all find them. They show up at my daughter's house. And so there's signs everywhere. But are you paying attention to those signs? Is really the question you have to ask yourself. And so she's not far. She leaves us little signs all the time that she's nearby. And that's something that I have held on to, that just, it's such a feel good feeling when you have those little moments and you're like, okay, I love you too. And I was thinking of you too. I miss you too. And it's those little moments that just lets those memories flood. Yes, at first it just brings the tears, right? And at moments it still does. But then there's moments where you just feel the gratitude and the joy. And you just thank God for giving you those memories, for giving you the time that you had with your loved one, right? And so grief doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's actually a very healthy thing to experience and to go through as long as you're open to allowing yourself to heal and to push through it and just know it's never really going to go away. It's going to come in waves. Um, we lost Liv in 2019, and here we are in 2024. So 5 years later, and we're still going through it once, I can't even say once in a while. We're still going through it. And we're still have those moments where it can hit you like a knife, right? Stab you right in the chest and take your breath away. And then there's other moments where you're just like, oh, Olivia would love that, or such and such would love that. And you just share that moment with them, even though they're not here with you. And I think that was the biggest blessing, was realizing I can still celebrate them, even though they're physically not here. And so maybe that's you today. Maybe you're struggling with the loss of something or someone, and you're wondering, how can I celebrate this loss so that it doesn't hit me and hurt so much? It's a matter of you finding the things that you know they loved, and then you going and doing them, or you going and celebrating them, or talking about it with someone. We feel like we can't talk about death, or we can't talk about the loss of someone or something, but we can, and it's allowed, and it's okay, and not everybody is going to understand it or know how to respond to it, but you just have to understand that part. If you can understand, the people are not necessarily trained to be emotionally equipped with grief, you'll understand that they're just trying to be there for you in their own way. And I think that was what helped me the most, because I would get offended if someone said the wrong thing, or I would just get kind of jilted or jaded if someone said the wrong thing. I would take it out of context. But what I had to learn was that we can only perceive things as much as our perception allows us. And so somebody who hasn't dealt with death is not going to be equipped necessarily to help somebody else that's going through that at the moment. But they're not going to get the experience in becoming a better support system for somebody if you don't give them that opportunity to be a support system for you. And so it's something where we all learn to navigate. And so there's no wrong way or there's no right way. It's just there's a way. And you have to figure out what way it is for you. Um, and so for me, my way of honoring Olivia is to just honor my family, to honor myself, and to honor my dreams and my goals. And, I teamed up with a company that gives back to childhood cancer in astronomical amount of ways. And I love the fact that I was able to partner with them, because that speaks to my heart. And they help so many different organizations that I want to support. And so for that to be one of their top priorities was just a huge blessing for me as a mom and a grandma, and somebody who's experienced cancer herself and healed her cancer and got it off of her out of her body, but then lost her granddaughter. That survivor's guilt hit me like a true, gut punch. It was just a gut punch, because I couldn't save her. And and it's just, we talk about that all the time, how, we want to be able to help other people and save people. And we're always the fixers of the family and the glue and the this and the that. But there's a moment where I couldn't do that. And I had to learn how to navigate survivor's guilt with the grief. And so if you have survivor's guilt, you just need to remember that it's beyond your control. Something that God has shown me is that He has control of everything. I have control of how I respond and how I react, how and how I emotionally navigate it, right? And how I find peace and understanding with it. But God has control of every situation. He has control of each of our stories. And once I could realize that, it took that power from me, that negative power force of, oh, shame, 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 you couldn't fix it, blah, 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 blah. And instead it put that in His responsibility. And I just said, God, it's all you, and I trust you. I trust you. And that was hard because I didn't trust anyone. Up until that point, I had no trust, not even for myself. I didn't even trust myself. And so now today, knowing I give all that trust to God was the game changer. And so I hope this helps somebody navigate grief a little easier, or even just a little more transparent. I feel like there's not enough talk about it, and so many people struggle, and it can take you out. Like, grief can take you out. And so it's so important that you do self-care. It's so important that while you're going through the process, that you're taking care of yourself. Let other people feed you food. Let them help you. Let them support you in those areas where they can, and if somebody wants to clean your house, let them. If they want to help you in some way, shape, or form, bring you groceries, bring you a meal, like whatever it is, let them. Let them be so open and receptive to the support and the help while you're navigating your emotions and while you're trying to pick up your pieces, and just be open to the love that people want to give you. And I think that was the biggest thing that we learned through this journey, was people want to love you and they're not sure how. And so give them ways to love you. Meals are a wonderful way. Even though we don't feel like eating, we still have to eat, right? We still got to eat something. Ask them to make you some meals to throw in the freezer for later. So you can just pull them out and make them. Like, it's just the little things that we don't realize can make a difference. Ask them to pay a bill. Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, can you help me pay this bill? You want to help? This is what I need help with. And you put, make a list. I always tell my daughter, I told her, make a list of things that we can get, that we need help with, and then have that list for people so that they know what they can do to support you. And it's not easy to make that list. So just give yourself grace and time, and just know that it's okay if you don't have that list either. People will figure it out. But I love, love, love the fact that I've learned enough through my experiences that now I can help someone else navigate it. And so, like I said, I hope this inspires you to just keep pushing through, and just know that you're always welcome to message me or to reach out. And I am more than happy to help you as well. Thank you for listening.